A lot of times when these things actually happen, you hear, oh, it's politicians that are behind it, you know, and things like that, which is really, really troubling. Well, we have a guest in the studio, Ahmed Kadiri. He's a security expert, and, you know, to examine this really critically for us. Good morning. It's good to have you on the show.
Good morning, Ahmed. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
What would you say really is feeding this, you know, mindset, this belief system in rituals for money or for prosperity or for success in, you know,
in any endeavor, for
exactly
that matter?
Well, like you said, what feeds this mindset? Poverty, unemployment, desperation to be wealthy. Now, from my experience in the last quarter of the year, kidnappings, ritual killings spike because people are desperate to make a good showing over Christmas and over New Year. Now, having said that, the rate of poverty within the society makes people desperate to do whatever it takes to make it big. So if kidnapping is going to be what will end their circle of poverty, so be it. If ritual killing is what is going to end the circle of poverty, so be it. People are very desperate to make it.
Yeah, but it's quite more troubling when you hear people who confess sometimes that they were actually sent by politicians and people who are well off.
Yeah.
If we have to put it in comparative terms to
so
what
how
the society
does that
is.
have to do with poverty?
Exactly. When it comes, because when we're talking about poverty and unemployment, some of these people who send them are high above poverty, high above unemployment.
Good. The rich people, if allegedly, if they say rich people send them, these rich people take advantage of the inadequacies of the people they send. They know that 500,000 naira is a lot of money for someone who is not able to feed his family, who is not able to send his kids to school, who is not able to meet up his financial inadequacies. So if you tell him, go do this, commit this act, I'll give you 500,000 naira, he will willingly do it. So it's a matter of taking advantage of the inadequacies of the poverty in society.
Still on the issue of whether it's really about poverty, I mean, in the papers only last week, there was a well-known businessman in, you know, somewhere in Ile-Ife who was caught alongside his herbalist, you know, what we call in this parts Babalawo, you know, with the human head and some parts. Is it an issue of our value system? We seem to have lost respect for human life, and it is playing out and expressing itself in most everything we do, including our politics and, you know, whatever. Is that not at the core of this?
The truth is, these things have always been with us. Right from when I was younger in the early 70s, I've always heard of things like, if you recall, Bomo. So these things have been with us. It's a culture. It's just that if you take a look back, in the 70s, we're more well off in this country. The rate of poverty in the country was not what we have right now. So it wasn't so prevalent. Now, fast forward to 2018. Can you compare the economics of 2018 to the economics in Nigeria in 1973? So well, what people
poverty
have
has always been part of us. I mean, before, was it not in the 80s that fella actually sang Suffering and Smiling?
Yes.
It must have gotten to a head at the time.
It's gotten to a crescendo, so to speak. So now people are more desperate. They've now imbibed more of that culture of going to meet witch doctors to bring human heads, bring human parts, or when you bring the hand, you get money. When you bring the toe, you get this. So people are easily gullible and are ready to do anything to be rich.
All right. Now, even on the papers this morning, there's this headline here that says, man allegedly kills kills lover, buries corpse inside the room. Now, we know that growing up, when you even hear in the village that somebody died, there's this feeling, there's this chill around, whether you know the person or not. But now, it's not even about somebody dying. It's the issue of even outrightly killing someone and not feeling anything. It takes someone beyond the normal to kill someone else and feel very comfortable. What can be responsible for that feeling, that ferocious feeling there where you can conceive, plan to kill somebody who is even close to you, and then life goes on normal.
Of the value system.
Yeah,
exactly. You just took it right out of my mouth. The value system we have now is it's way below average. We don't have respect for human life in this part of the world. When you go to other climes, if you as much as trip along the sidewalk, the way you see other people react to you, there's so much, you start wondering, why are you so concerned? It's just a little mishap here. But back home, you find that there's no, the value system is diminished. Human life means nothing. It's only in Lagos I see, you just see a corpse by the roadside. Oh, what's with that? Oh, person died, okay.
And everyone just moves on.
Everyone just moves on. So the value system is, I've never, in the course of traveling, I've never seen a corpse just lying down the road. And I've never seen it. But here it's normal. You see,
but is there a difference between the metropolitan place like Lagos, maybe even Abuja, for instance, and maybe the other places, other states that may not have the metropolitan, outlook? Is there a difference in approach, or maybe the presence or the reduction of these values that we talk about?
Well, in Lagos, I think the value system has dropped, like you said, in the metropolitan circle. Perhaps in the villages, people are a bit more
humane.
A bit more humane. There's a bit more empathy, amongst people. And yes, in the villages, people are much more, I think there's still that, the value system is a bit still higher. People are
so
still...
is there a need for, whether government or people in positions of authority or influence to actually begin to put out a counteracting narrative that, look, you cannot use a human life, you cannot use some human parts and sit in your house and money will actually come. That it takes your going out and working hard. So somebody is only just trying to take advantage of your ignorance, in spite of the fact that, you actually have, these are educated people that do these things. I mean, anytime you drive through the highbrow areas of Lagos, you find, I hope I will not be offending some sensibilities, some sacrifices done in highbrow areas. You don't expect that it's a person in Ajegunle that actually, would leave the Ajegunle or Mushin or some area that you think, is predominantly poor people that stay in those places, that would leave those areas to come to VI or Ikoyi to drop those things, But let's come back even to the practicalities, the practical things that we can do. There's been a lot of talk about community policing. In Lagos, for example, you have neighborhood watch and all of those, to actually police the communities, to check some of these, tendencies. How effective, really?
For me, when you want to take it from the governmental aspect,
yes,
let's reduce poverty. Let's create employment. Let's better the standard of living.
That is when you say you're insisting that it's the poor people that are behind this.
No, it's not. When I say it's not. When I say, when you see, if
or is it poverty of the mind?
When you send someone to commit a dastardly act, you're not going to pick someone who is not desperate.
Okay.
Now, that desperate person, if you take him out of that desperation, give him a job, let him be able to take care of his responsibilities as a father, as a son, as a husband.
He won't become gullible.
He won't become gullible to such errands.
Yeah, true.
So that's the beginning of solving the problem. However, there are people who, in spite of the fact that they have jobs, have a good means of livelihood, are greedy, who will still do it anyway. But at least with responsible governance that acts towards creating employment and doing what is right as a government, we will see a drop we won't see much kidnapping anyway. We will see a significant drop in the rate of this sort of crimes.
All right, we're going into elections now, and we're also coming to the end of the year, one way or the other. So it's a combination of two strong factors that we see. What extra caution would you say one should take? Because when you say we should improve on, you know, factors in reducing poverty and then also reducing unemployment, those are long-term factors or long-term strategies.
Well, in the short term, we should see more law enforcement.
Okay.
We should see more vigilance on the part of you and I in trying to curb this sort of crime. So basically, for me, those are the two factors. Increase law enforcement. Better your law enforcement, equip them so that they can do their jobs better in trying to curb these crimes in the short term.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Ahmed Kadiri, on the show this morning. Yeah, we're taking it to, I guess we have a guest in Abuja. He's Executive Director, Emergency and Risk Alert, Gbenro Olajuigbe. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure being with you.
Absolutely. Well, we've been looking at it from the human angle, if you like. You know, let's even take it to your area of influence, which is the professional, you know, emergency and risk alert. Exactly how should society and, you know, government, individuals be responding to this rise in killings and kidnappings in the country?
Yeah, I'm going to start in this way, that the greatest threat the greatest threat to peace and order in any society is a man that has no stake in it. And that is very true of Nigeria when you look at the condition of people living in Nigeria, particularly the poor. For example, let me give you an instance of what I mean by a man who has no stake in Nigeria. If a government cannot even pay 30,000 basic salary, and then you go out to unleash 100,000 school fees on the same children of the poor, such people don't have stake in Nigeria. Even the rich, astonishingly, some of them don't have stake in Nigeria. They don't believe in Nigeria. They just want to get all what they can and can all what they get with their relatives, children outside the country. All this lead to what I have called the disequilibrium in a society that makes a society to become a pyramid, where some tiny minorities have all what they get from that society, and majority at the base of the pyramid are condemned to absolute poverty. This creates leverage for inequality, an inequality which is always triggered by unjust wealth and unjust poverty, drive crime in any society. Therefore, an unjust poverty drive crime in any society. Therefore, it can be argued that when a society chooses to live by injustice, it should not complain about violence that is happening in that society. Injustices, especially social and economic injustices, they drive violence. And we must appreciate that.
All right, Gbenro,
we have to face the fact.
Yes. Now, Gbenro, you mentioned something very germane here. When you mention unjust wealth and unjust poverty, it really strikes a chord. So, does it mean that these issues of killings and kidnappings we're finding now are more of socioeconomic, or they're fueled by socioeconomic factors? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I will give you the relationship by using the same platform, the same scenario of unjust wealth and unjust poverty now. For example, people steal the money available for education in society. A lot of children can no longer go to school. Their parents inevitably lose control over them. The opportunity to become a better Nigeria is wasted already. And the opportunity of going into crime is open to them. So it is a subculture that is being formed out of a dominant culture. So when the dominant culture is fueled by injustice, a subculture will begin to emerge to accommodate those that are being shortchanged by that society. It can be a subculture of courtesan, of armed robbery gangsters, of political thuggery gangs. Those are subcultures that have emerged due to the oppression and repression of the people, due to poverty. And it has been established in all books of criminology that socio-economic contexts drive crime in any society. But that is not to excuse criminals. But that is actually to point to why our society cannot competently fight crime. Because for crime to exist in any society, 3 conditions must abound.
Yeah.
The first condition is that there must be motivation for that crime. When politicians steal money, that is motivation for committing crime. When children cannot access education, and doors of education are shut at them or against them, that is motivation for committing crime.
All right, Mr. Gbenro Olajuigbe, we'll have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time. You have given a very, very interesting perspective, and one thing that I'm sure our viewers will take away: unjust wealth and unjust poverty, and how can you ensure that justice is done, even to the criminals who take up arms against society. Thank you so much for your insights this morning.